Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel, it's Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me from Kenan Stadium, as you can see by his backdrop, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, I'm not going to lie, I didn't think we'd be having this kind of conversation tonight. And to be honest, I thought I'd be on the Kenan Stadium field with you as well. Real quickly, for those who don't know, I don't have my normal backdrop. Me and my fiance moved into a new house yesterday, and I'm currently in our old home right now because we don't have Wi-Fi in our new home. So that's why everything looks a little bit different. I was actually at the game tonight as well, but a few different reasons had to rush back here so I could do this Three Things video with AJ. So I wish I was on the turf with the AJs. I love doing these in person a little bit better, but didn't work out like that tonight. But
well, I'm in an open air part of the press box.
So you're outside.
Where the radio booth is, so I'm outside too.
I love it. At least one of us is still outside. It kind of feels like normal.
I'm taking one for the team here.
Yeah, I love it, man. I appreciate the dedication. But AJ, just a tough game for the Tar Heels all the way around. 21-17 loss to Georgia Tech. I think I speak for most Carolina fans, I should say, when I don't think a lot of people saw that one coming. I don't think a lot of fans in that stadium before kickoff tonight saw a game like that coming. And I think if you would have told just about any Carolina fan in that stadium that Georgia Tech was going to score 21 points, you'd be like, well, Carolina probably won by a few touchdowns. Wasn't meant to be. So, AJ, we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to wrap this one up with what does this mean, as we always do. We're just going to kind of have more of a conversation because there's so many different things to hit on, more than just three things in this one with the way this one ended up going. But I think the biggest thing, AJ, no points for North Carolina in the second half. That's just hard to believe in a lot of ways. Georgia Tech outgaining Carolina 373 to 365. And this for me was the biggest one, AJ, and I'll kick it to you. I really thought this is a game that was won and lost, just like any football game is, especially tonight in the trenches. 6 sacks for Georgia Tech, none for North Carolina. I think that, for me, just sums up the game in a lot of different parts. So, AJ, I'll kick it on over to you, but overall, just a bad night for North Carolina and a bad loss all the way around.
Yeah, there's so many places to go. What I'll begin with is that when we talked about the preview at the beginning of the season, I kept saying, you got to factor in one of those WTF games because this program has a history every year of having that WTF game. Mm-hmm. And tonight was it. I didn't think it was going to be. Now, my prediction, I had Carolina scoring 53 points, man.
So, I actually had Georgia Tech's point total right. I said they scored 21.
No, I was way off. But
yeah,
let's start with the offense because there's a lot to pick at with the defense too. I don't buy into this. Well, they only held them to 21 because they played a bad offense. We'll get into that in a minute. Yeah. Offensively, Carolina was terrible. Mm-hmm. This was the worst they've looked all year. Drake was not sharp tonight. You could see it early. He wasn't sharp. Mm-hmm. Here's what's incredible though. I love digging stats. I love stats because they do tell you something, right? Mm-hmm. So here's what the stats tell us. Carolina's first play on offense, 80-yard touchdown run, Elijah Green. Their second play on offense, which was the first play in their next series, 33-yard pass. The next 61 plays, which is the rest of the game, 252 yards. That's it.
Yeah.
It sums it up.
Yeah, it does.
In that sequence, after that completed pass, the 33-yarder on Carolina's second offensive play, the next 25 snaps, Drake had 1 yard passing.
It's almost hard to believe in a lot of ways.
Carolina scored 1 touchdown on its last 10 possessions. 2 for 5 in the red zone with 1 TD. They were 3 for 14, 4 for 14 on third downs. Mm-hmm. 6 sacks allowed. The offense was terrible. Horrible. Miami scored 35 points last week against this team in Atlanta.
No. Yeah, it's not a great defense. We talked about it in the preview.
But they have some NFL guys.
Yeah, they have some weapons.
They had some NFL guys, and those guys played well tonight, but there are NFL guys in every defense in this league just about, and Carolina's done pretty well. This offense has only hit the 40-point mark twice since App State. I don't think that they're overly prolific, but they're really good at accumulating yards and doing what they need to do. And then they do enough that the defense lately has been stepping up late in games and making plays. Tonight, the defense had to do it for a long time. They left points on the field at Wake last week. They left points on the field tonight. Mm-hmm. And had they converted those points in those situations at Wake last week, I think they would have put the Deacons away early. We wouldn't have had the drama. If they would have done that tonight, they would have put Georgia Tech away as well. We wouldn't have had the drama. So for all the people that want to bash the defense and bash Chiswick, the offense wasn't that good. And a lot of people were killing Longo on Twitter. You know what? I have issue with one call. They had that third down. They threw that little screen pass. I didn't think that was a good call. Otherwise, I don't think it was the calls. The kids just didn't execute. You could draw up the greatest play in the history of mankind. If the kids don't execute, it's not going to work. This is on the players. Max said Monday that we'll see, where our maturity is. I wrote a piece about it that we ran. I posted about midnight last night. We ran it today. This is a test in their maturity. They didn't pass. They failed it. Max said tonight they were not mature tonight. I asked him, did you see any senses coming on? Because he said the right things Wednesday morning when we had him on Zoom. And he didn't say he really did, but you saw it tonight. And it really doesn't, if you don't have it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and you do on Saturday, you get away with it, right? If you have it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but you don't Saturday, you don't get away with it. So you got to have it on game day. That's what goes into the standings. They didn't have it. They didn't have it on offense. I thought Drake, he appeared a little bit rattled. They were not in sync. He made some questionable throws that weren't picked. He wasn't helped because there were numerous drops. The downs pass in the end zone. That could have been a touchdown, could have won the game. They could have escaped again. But it caught up with them. They've been flirting with disaster, and it caught up with them tonight, and they just did not play well. We can hit on a bunch of things here because we're going to do a lot more than three things. You can pull out some specifics if you want, but we only got two players in postgame. We got Cedric and Drake. They're the faces of both sides of the ball. I think that they manned up. Drake took responsibility for himself and for what happened. Cedric called it like it is. Matt called it like it is. Nobody's dodging anything here. That's good. And they are 9-2. They're Coastal Division champs. They can still win an ACC championship, still go to the Orange Bowl. But all the talk about CFP, and I think all the talk about Heisman, probably gone too.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Let me run through some stats real quick, AJ, and then I want to hit on something else real quick before we kind of talk about what this means. Drake May, 16 for 30, 202 yards, no touchdowns, one interception. Elijah Green, 92 rushing yards. 80 of those came on the first play, which I know Carolina fans remember. 2 touchdowns for him. So just 12 yards after that first play, which is just hard to believe. Bryson Nesbitt, 4 catches, 85 yards. Cedric Gray led the defense with 14 tackles. And Bryson Nesbitt, as I mentioned, led the team in receiving yards as well with 85 yards, like I said. So, AJ, I want to talk about Drake a little bit more. And I'm not over here, I'm not trying to pick on him or anything like that because he's been fantastic this year. In a lot of ways, he's single-handedly won Carolina many games this year in a lot of ways with how good he has been and how poor Carolina's defense has been at times. But for me, I was in the stands tonight. I was talking to some Carolina fans about this during the game and after the game. And you talked about him looking uncarried. We talked about it in his Heisman podcast we did. He's such a controlled player out there. He's always in control. Yeah. He always looks like he's the best player on the field in a lot of ways. And it seemed like early on in the game, I know he didn't look quite on it, but he still looked a little bit more like the Drake May we've seen this year. And then the second half kind of rolls around in particular, besides kind of really the final drive where he made some nice passes, including the one that Josh Downs should have caught. He just looked uncharacteristically rattled. I mean, he wasn't, I think the biggest thing with him that I noticed that was almost shocking to see is it wasn't like he was even being forced at times to make these incredibly tough throws. There was even these 5-yard ends that he wasn't throwing correctly. There was one in particular where Kamari Morales was running across the middle, maybe 5 yards down the field, and Drake May just missed him. I mean, and there was a couple plays like that. So for me, I talked to a couple of Carolina fans about this, but the Drake May Heisman campaign officially kind of launched this week by North Carolina. And then Drake May has the most uncharacteristic freshman game that we've seen out of him, 5 days later. I'm not saying that's the reason. To me, it seems like a big coincidence that all the kind of attention has moved to him. I know there's been attention on him all year and the Heisman talk has been around all year, but the kind of Heisman campaign from the program kind of launches this week, and he comes out and has just an incredibly poor game where he doesn't look comfortable out there. He looks rattled. And like I said, made some nice plays and throws down the stretch that probably should have been rewarded that weren't. But overall, just a poor game from him where he just didn't look in control like we've talked about all year. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain on his performance. Like I said, I'm not trying to pick on Drake May because it was a team effort tonight. It looked like a lot of times that guys from watching the game weren't also getting open and putting him in positions. But held the ball a little bit too long at times, you could say. I thought Carolina's offensive line was really, really poor tonight at times, 6 sacks for Georgia Tech. But what were your just overall thoughts and kind of takeaways from his game? Because he just looked so uncharacteristically rattled tonight.
Well, I think his performance was a microcosm of the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just the Drake May Heisman campaign that was launched this week and where they spoke openly about it. Remember what Josh Downs said leaning against that wall at Truist Field last week? Someone said, well, you can now talk about Clemson. I goes, yeah, now I can finally talk about Clemson because they're going to play them in the ACC championship game.
Yeah.
Last year's team didn't handle prosperity very well. 2 years ago, they didn't handle prosperity all that well. Because you saw what happened, they're off to a good start. They go down to Florida State, get smoked, lose to UVA, and then they smoke Miami. And okay, they competed. They still lost the Orange Bowl, still lost.
Yes.
So, and Max talked about learning how to handle prosperity. This is all the process of the program.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. I mean, you just don't turn on a light or flip a switch and you know how to handle prosperity and you're fully mature and everything's going to be smooth riding after that. I mean, we've seen them getting very close to having one of these games already this season where we were having this similar type podcast. I think what's surprising tonight is it was against this team in this stadium and it was this kind of performance. If you would have told me at noon today they were going to lose, I said, okay, 42-38.
Yeah.
Defense is just going to stink.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it would be like this, but I do think it was a microcosm. They talked about, look at what Georgia Tech did to us last year. We're going to get them back. I just think I talk about it an awful lot. And I was talking to Trey Scott about this when we were walking down the steps because the elevators weren't working. On the way to go to the press conference, I said, human nature always finds itself on the playing fields and the playing courts. It's a part of athletics, human nature. And that's why I've said before, I think one of the reasons Mac is such a great coach, because he's so good with human nature. He's so good with people. But sometimes there's nothing a coach can do. Sometimes there is absolutely nothing a coach can do, a staff can do. This is a player-led team. And Matt kept saying it's a player-led team. And this was an opportunity to see how much of a player-led team they are. They still are a player-led team, but they aren't where the program is going to eventually be and where they want the program to be. So there are marks along the path that people are going to go back and look at and say, okay, what value did they get out of some of these negative experiences? We know they got a lot out of Notre Dame. So what do they get out of this? It's a setback. It hurts some of the things they were going for, but let's be honest. No one thought this was a CFP team. No one thought this was a CFP team even earlier this week. Okay. Drake exploding as much as he did. None of us had him in the Heisman conversation. This sets everything up real well for next year. This is another lesson to learn. Mm-hmm. But it's a surprise it happened here in this particular situation. But the WTF games happen. The offense hasn't been consistently great. They've had some snags lately, leaving points in the field and not always cashing in. Again, they've only been over 40 points twice since App State. So I think Drake was a microcosm of everything. Defensively, Georgia Tech was playing two quarterbacks, one who came in with a below 50% completion rate. He was 10 for 25 against UVA. And the other one hadn't played a snap all year.
That's crazy.
It is a third string and fourth string quarterbacks played today. Yeah. And they beat Carolina. So this defense has kind of regularly opposing quarterbacks do a high-end mark something statistically against this defense. So, 21 points and under 400 yards, I don't think that's a lot to celebrate because they had a third-string quarterback who was 10 for 25 against UVA, and they had a kid who hadn't played a snap all year long, and they were rotating him, they were getting him in trouble. Mm-hmm. And they were killing Carolina with some of those screens. Carolina had success with one blitz, and that's when Duck got the interception. The other times they blitz and they would just dump stuff off and there was nobody within miles. Mm-hmm. Kind of thought maybe you do a little bit of adjustment, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot to learn from this. And Carolina fans, as upset as they are, have a right to be upset, but you're still 9-2, Jacob. And you win the division. You got NC State coming up in 6 days, not 7. So there's still an awful lot that can be attained this year. This is just one of those really smelly nights in an otherwise a rosy season for this program.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Real quickly, before we move on to what this means, I want to ask you one more thing. 17-0 lead for the Tar Heels, don't score a point in the second half. That was because we talked about this potentially being a trap game. Even Mac talked about it because of coming off the Wake win, winning the Coastal, going into NC State. Everybody could it wasn't really a surprise if Carolina came in a little flat, but that really wasn't the case. They jumped out to a big lead. It should have been up. Should have been more than 17-0. They left some points out on the field. But what did you make of the fact that they get up by that many points? And not only is the defense let up 21 points, which not really a surprise for any Carolina fan watching this with how they played this year, but the fact that the offense it's almost like they forgot how to play football. They didn't really do anything until the last drive of the game, where arguably should have came out with the win in kind of a great escape fashion. But what did you make of that? Because that was another big surprise in the game for me.
I've seen Hall of Fame baseball players go for 5 with 4 strikeouts. It happens.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that the offensive line hasn't been as great as people make it out to be. They're at 32 sacks allowed now. So a couple of years ago, they were at 36, and the goal going into last season, remember, it was 20 because they were really upset about 36. So they're going to pass 36 this year in 13, just in 13 games, right? Mm-hmm. The run blocking hasn't been consistently good. That's why there's been some issues. The holes are not always there. That's one reason Elijah Green's really good for this offense right now, because he gets to holes quicker than the other guys. So if there's a seam there, he has a chance of getting through it. Not always, but he has a chance of getting through it. So they didn't play well. So Drake and Josh.
Yeah, they kind of bailed him out this year a lot of times.
In that TV, wasn't that a TV show?
Yeah.
Drake and Josh. Show. Well, Drake and Josh bailed him out a lot. Antoine Green bailed him out. Morales sometimes. Morales had at least one drop tonight. Mm-hmm. So Drake wasn't great tonight. And look, Drake was great all these other games, and they're barely beating Wake. They're barely beating UVA. They're barely beating Duke. They're barely beating Miami. And Drake was great those games. So he wasn't great tonight. So the result shouldn't really surprise people.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point. Yeah, when you think about it like that. Let's talk about what this means, AJ. Obviously, you mentioned it. State coming up in 6 days, next Friday. Obviously, a big game. They're coming off 2 losses. They lost at Louisville today as well. So a game in which it's crazy. If you would have said a month ago, both of these teams could potentially be unranked. I would assume Carolina would stay in the rankings. Who cares? Doesn't really matter.
They'll stay in the rankings.
Yeah, but you're going into a game with 2 teams that a month and a half ago were sitting a little bit prettier than they are now. I know Carolina even 2 hours ago were sitting prettier than they are now. But what does this mean? Because Coastal Championship coming up, a state game coming up, Carolina has to get up for that. You would think revenge would be on their minds for how last year went. I was on the field for that game. It really, in a rivalry game at your rival like that, couldn't have gone any worse for the Tar Heels without it finished. So another big opportunity coming up for Carolina to kind of erase this, reach 10 wins, get max 100th win, and then, hopefully get some confidence going into the ACC Championship game in a few weeks. So for you, what does this mean?
Well, this means that the program isn't ready to ascend to that serious CFP conversation level.
Yeah, not quite there yet.
That's what it means. They're not there yet. That's no slight to them. We report on what they do and then what they say about what they do. So we saw with our own eyes tonight. They weren't ready. Mm-hmm. And they're making progress, a lot of progress. The program, I think, is back on track for year 4. If you would have told people 4 years ago that in year 4, you're going to win the Coastal, you're going to be 9-2, hosting state with a chance to go 10-2 and beat a top 10 Clemson team in Charlotte, people would have said that's what we expect from Mac Brown. Yeah. So that's where they are. But they got a lot of work to do. They have talent, but they don't have enough. They need more. Mm-hmm. They need to have the kind of team that when a lot of stuff just didn't work and the club's not totally wired and in sync, that dudes step up and make dude plays, and it's enough to beat a Georgia Tech. Yeah. And it's enough to put away Virginia when you have a chance to. It's enough to put away Wake Forest when you have a chance to. It's enough to put away Miami when you have a chance to. And they don't have enough dude power to do that. They need more dudes, and they have young ones that are coming up, and they're going to improve the class of 23 here pretty soon, I think. That's what our understanding is. So it's a process. You don't go from 5 wins in 2 years to the CFP in 4 years without that just doesn't happen. I know some other teams have had their runs, and Carolina had this run, but I think people should be pleased with where the program is, and also take stock in the fact that they will learn from today. Mm-hmm. Everybody will learn. And Mac is really good at learning from stuff. That doesn't mean that the next time they're in that situation, things turn out differently. it's human beings have a tendency of fouling things up sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what happened here today. The kids fouled it up. Max said he and the staff fouled it up, and they lost at home to Georgia Tech. It's an embarrassing loss, but it's a loss they'll learn from. They still have all their goals in front of them, and we'll see how they respond. Journalistically, it makes it very fascinating to me to see how they respond. And they'll be ready for state. Cedric said afterward, he goes, "Yeah, I'm ready. I'm already ready to play a game. They stole one from us." Well, I don't know if state stole it. I think they did somewhat, but Carolina
also
had
kind of
the
gave it away.
mother of all meltdowns in the last minute and a half. So
I saw them on too.
I don't think readiness will be an issue this week. They got to go out and perform, though.
Mm-hmm.
If Georgia Tech gets 6 sacks against this offense, what does State get? We'll see. If Georgia Tech can knock Drake around, what does that linebacker crew at State do? They got a lot to prove this week. It's an opportunity to do it, and that's what you can ask for. If they do, they get 10 wins. It'll be the second time since 1997. Yeah. So there's still a lot to play for.
Definitely. Yeah, like you said, all goals still in mind. Tough loss, though. A loss that a lot of people didn't expect, and I'm sure most people on Carolina's roster and coaching staff didn't expect tonight. But that's college football for you. Go look around the country. A lot of top 25 teams lost today, and North Carolina being one of them. 21-17 loss to Georgia Tech. That's going to do it for us. It's going to do it for AJ from Kenan Stadium. I know you got plenty of work to do, AJ. I'm going to let you run, let you get to it. You've got to be back in Chapel Hill in about not too long, right?
9 hours. Yeah, it's almost 11, so I got to be back here at 11 I got to be back here at 10 a.m. for the basketball game.
That noon Sunday tip-off for basketball after a football game is tough.
It's almost 11. I'll get out of here by 2.
Yeah, could be worse, right? Could have been 8 o'clock game tonight. Look on the bright side, man. We got glass half full, as they say. So, Edge, I'll let you run so you can get. I'll let you run so you can get to it, man. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. And make sure you keep it locked to TarIllustrated.com for all your post-game coverage from tonight's game and for all your coverage of North Carolina's basketball game against James Madison tomorrow. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.